Is that the countdown?
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Good morning, everyone. How we doing out there? To all of our Facebook and to YouTube. This is the Brothers Podcast, where we get down and talk about information, tools, tips, and applications that will help you move better in life and in purpose. And so, with that being said, good morning, brothers. How we doing this morning?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
All good.
We all good this morning?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
You better know it.
How's everybody week been? It's been good?
Yeah, I can say yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good week.
It's been a good week.
Slow but sure.
Slow but sure. Hey man, it's been a good one for me, man. It's kind of been a restful one for me. So for that, I am grateful. Not as busy or chaotic, but just a little bit as restful. So for me, that's always amazing when it can be that, man.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So we ready to dive on into this good old topic of financial literacy, how to win in your finances. So hey guys, if you're tuning in on Facebook, if you're tuning in on YouTube, go ahead and tell a friend about the show this morning, because we're really going to dive deep into finance and how to live better financially and what that means. And sometimes growing up, you're not taught how to be financially sound, how to build a wealth, what that looks like, what that resembles, some practical tools and tips of how to leave an inheritance for our children. And how do we work and network together to build wealth? I think that's really critical in our communities, because we don't do it enough. We talk about it, we want to be about it, but the actual process of working and networking together to build wealth amongst each other and to create that wealth within ourselves and our family units, man, and how we share that with everyone. I was talking with Dr. Johnson, y'all, and everyone listening before we got on this morning, was that I didn't really realize the severity of financial literacy and financial wealth and what that looks like until here recently. It's still ever learning and growing in this process. I feel like I'm playing catch up mode now, because when you were home, we were taught you need to go to college, get you a good job, do all those good things, but no one ever sat you down and tell you how to build wealth, how to live financially stable, how to move in those best practices to help you be the better person and better economically and financially well off. And we're not talking like the financial well off, like you have to have millions of dollars and billions of dollars, but just knowing how to live well financially and how to win well financially. I think there's so many times that we weren't taught that. Did any of you guys have any similar experiences?
Absolutely. I think that
go ahead, Pastor.
Yeah, the mentality for years has always been to flow with go to school, put your money up, and then you'll be okay. And that is not the case anymore. When it comes to finding your career path, school may be something that you've got to have. But when it comes to financial literacy, to generational wealth, it has less to do with what school you go to and everything to do with mentality and habit. And we were not taught those tools to be able to build financial wealth and understand what that looks like and what practices to go there. So we had to learn on our own, trial and effort, you know.
Mm-hmm. Trial and error, yeah. Go ahead,
There
Dr.
it is.
Same thing on my end. You know, we were taught the concept of saving, but we weren't taught the concept of avoid debt or, you know, make intelligent decisions on the use of credit and non-use of credit and so forth. So you end up in a situation where you get this cycle going, especially going back to Langston days, whenever you had Discover on the yard saying, hey, sign up for these credit cards.
Go ahead.
Get set up with everything that you need and everything else. And if you're not working in college, you're really not making any money, you think, okay, let me go ahead and sign up for this credit card, not knowing that you're signing up for money that you don't have.
Right. And I think that, and for me, that I think that started the mentality is because then I can say, oh, I can take this credit card, swipe it, not knowing that I'm already accumulating debt. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing that the whole mindset of being debt free, not, you know, using those, expensing those funds to just do whatever. So I think it's that part of it too. Brother Shahid, was you going to share something?
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. I really didn't know anything about credit until I went to college. You know, as Dr. Johnson was talking about, we were in that line for Discovery card, and you know, you just spinning, and not really understanding. You know, because hey, I got a little work study job. You know what I'm saying? I went in the doors. You think you're doing something, but my mom never taught me that. Only thing that I knew was to get out here and grind, really, and just get it. You know, because my mom and my stepfather, they was always independent workers. So she really didn't push too much of a job, but just get your own. And but as far as the and save your money, of course. But as far as how to reinvest that money or how to do this and how to do that, no, I didn't learn any of that. That's just on the road, on the pathway of just learning how to do things, you know. And if you look back, like you say, in our communities, there's a reason for it to be like that, because the science of business was held away from us because we were the business. You understand what I'm saying? So by the time you learn it, it may be too late. So, you know, and you got a 400-year head start on it. So, but now that we know, and now that, you know, that we went through, so we have to talk to each other, man, and figure out the best ways and ways to make sure that we are financially stable throughout the generations. Yes, sir.
And also, Doc, I'll never forget that I was taught, well, it's amazing to listen to the gentleman speak about their experiences, because no matter what circle you operating in, the stories are the same. When I was in the military, they had a credit card by a company called DPP, and even though it had a real name, it was laughingly known as Dumb Privates Plan. Wow. Because privates would come in brand new, fresh, naive, and they would get that credit card and they would run it to the limit and create that early on, not realizing it's going to haunt you later on. And so in our communities, we're taught to survive, not to live. So to survive, we start foolishly thinking that if I'm surviving, I'm living, and that's not the case.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's so critical, man. And I think, and some of our listening audience as well, too, is saying the same thing, is that we were never taught about how to sustain good credit and make good credit. You know, we were taught, like I said, go get you a job, get you a good paying job, you save money, but not like everyone else saying how to reinvest that, how to make that money work for you financially and really build something. And so many times, and so now we play this catch-up game, or when we get ready to retire, you know, we don't have as much. And so now you got to supplement your income because we didn't plan effective enough, or our kids are getting ready to go to college. And so now we got to try to, you know, rob Peter to pay Paul, to make sure we can financially help, sustain college and all of those things, and not thinking in the mindset of financial planning in all of it. And I think one of the things that we definitely have to grow in, what we're going to talk about today, is some of the tips and tools, guys, of how we can definitely do that, and show you some tips and tools of how you can definitely win in this situation called life. Don't mean we got it all together. I mean, we're still working on it in the process of it all as well too. So you're going to hear from small business owners, not small, but I ain't call them small business owners, who are doing extremely well at what they do, you know what I'm saying, and their financial plans and things of that magnitude, and just how to save practically in college and what it looks like for our kids and things like that, or whether they may not be going to a 4-year, maybe go to a 2-year. Depends on how that's set up in your home and your household, but just some principles that help us to be successful. So let's dive on in. Pastor Tim, so when we think about want some practical tools and tips of how to get out of debt and what that looks like, I know many people subscribe to the Dave Ramsey piece. Many people look at that Dave Ramsey and look at that as the go-to model for that piece. And I know earlier in our discussion that we were talking that you had a different mindset or a different way of counseling out debt. So talk to everyone, and Brother Shahid and Dr. Johnson, you guys can add in and chime in, and we'll just keep this conversation flowing on how to get out of debt practices.
Well, the first thing is, before you touch anything that you do on a habitual basis, you must first change your mentality. Right. And I think a lot of us try to just start doing things to get out of a situation, but because the mentality hasn't changed, you're destined to find yourself right back where you started. So the first thing is change the mentality. And so my wife and I had to come together and, number one, redefine what credit means to us. Because we both were brought up believing that to get credit was to use someone else's money to get something that we don't necessarily need, nor do we have any idea how we're going to pay it back. And to be honest with ourselves, most small families think the exact same way. I don't have the money to buy it, but I really want it, and I have the credit, so let me use my credit to get it. Whereas our counterparts look at credit in a situation where credit is leverage. It doesn't mean that I don't have the money. It's just that I would prefer to use your money than to use my money, so I will leverage your money rather than leverage my own. Right. That's a different mentality. So we had to start thinking on that level and say, hey, wait a minute. If I don't have the money, and I don't have a plan to get the money, then there is no way I'm going to use a credit card or credit to get what I really don't need, and I have no idea how to get that money back to the person I got it from. That's number one. The second thing, when it comes to your question, when it came to getting out of debt, we looked at all the debt that we had. We didn't have a whole lot of debt, but we had enough debt to be concerned. What we started doing first was, instead of trying to focus on the largest bill, we focused on the smallest bills. And we started at step number one, because small victories are extremely helpful when trying to be successful at killing debt. So we started knocking out the small bills one by one, just knocking out those small victories. And as we knocked out a small bill, we take those funds and push those funds not to your largest bill, but to your next smallest bill. Keep paying the minimum on your larger bill, but your smaller bills are your focus. So you knock out your bill, take the money you were paying your smallest bill, push that money to your next smallest bill. That bill would now go away. If you do the math, it's more intelligent to do it that way because you're knocking out things that gain interest. True. And rather than put all your money, the extra money that you get to your largest bill, which is going to take a while to get rid of, you'll knock out the smaller bills, which effortlessly knocks out the interest you're paying on those smaller bills. And as you knock out the smaller bills, you work your way to a place where all you'll have left is your largest bill. And now all of the funds that you had for those smaller bills have been pushed to your largest bill, and it's the only bill you have. Now you'll have maximum impact on knocking out your largest bill. It may sound like a lot, but it's extremely simple. And by the time you get to that largest bill, you'll knock that largest bill out and you'll be very happy about it. And I'll give you an example of what we did. All of our smaller bills are gone. The only bill that we really have are our residual living bills. And my wife's truck is paid off completely. My truck, I just bought in November. It was $15,000. We now only owe $6,000 on it. Not because we're not rich. Neither of us have a lot of money, but we just were blessedly wise in pushing funds from smaller bills to larger bills to now we're able to maximize on killing a larger bill.
Absolutely. All right.
Yes, sir.
No, go ahead.
No, good. Okay. I was going to start out by, just for the young listeners to know what is financial literacy and what does that mean? It's defined as financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills, including personal financial management, budgeting, and investing. The main three things that we don't focus on in our community. And this is why we're having this conversation. Now, at this point in my life, I don't have any debt except for my mortgage. That's it. That's it. And then my wife's truck, which we plan on paying that off here real soon. But again, it comes back to financial managing, budgeting, and investing. Those three categories are very crucial when you're talking about financial literacy. You don't have to have a lot of money. You just have to understand, or we just have to understand or learn to what are our wants and what are our needs. They start teaching this to first graders, wants and needs. And so write down the things that you want out of life, write down the things that you need, and where are you trying to get to? I remember when we went to Langston, they would always say, well, man, you always got to have a side hustle. You always got to have something else going on. Well, that's investing. You know what I'm saying? These are the instructors are guiding us to learn how to invest, whether it's the stock market, whether it's personal property, or whether it's commercial property, whether it's land acquisition. Find things that you can invest in, whether it's in an impoverished area where the taxes are low and the land is low, but you can, as gentrification moves across, these would be good investments. Learn how to understand the stock market if you want to invest in a publicly owned business, and form your groups of or your small groups of investors together and start doing. Budgeting is a big thing. Knowing how much money you have, how much money you have to spend, where it's going to be allocated to, how much you're going to put in savings. All of this, we have to become better managers of our money, and it has to be taught. I know what we do now, as far as like with our children, they're on our credit cards. You know what I'm saying? To build up their credit. And you start talking about credit, and these are middle school and high school students. So when they come out, they at least understand what that means, because they also are being taught that debt is slavery. And, and that's a principle that we have to understand, that when you owe somebody some money, you are a slave to them until you get off of their payroll. It really doesn't get any realer than that. So financial literacy is all about managing, budgeting, and investing.
Absolutely. Dr. Johnson?
I just concur with Pastor Jim and Brother Muhammad as well, because that's what my wife and that's the same approach that we took. We started off with those small wins and used those to capitalize into larger wins. And we got to a point, it's very critical in terms of what Brother Muhammad just said, in terms of the whole wants and needs perspective, because a lot of times in our community, and I'm a perfect example, I figured, okay, I'm a healthcare professional. Let me go out and get this nice BMW. Let me do this. Let me do this.
Go ahead.
Just so I can have the look. But just because I have the look doesn't necessarily mean that those things are paid for. So at the same time, I'm driving this nice car, thinking I'm doing well and everything else, we still have a mountain of debt. We still have 3 kids in Primrose at the same time. And I'm like, this isn't working. So as Pastor Tim mentioned, my wife and I had to sit down and reevaluate options. And I was like, this car, but I was brought up that way, that whole flashy mentality. And it's like, no, this isn't this isn't it. Let me go ahead and trade this in and give me a Camry that I can pay off in like 2 to 3 years. Or my wife had her truck, you know, both of us have had both of our vehicles paid off for the last 6 to 7 years. And our mentality is the money that could be going towards car payments could be going towards investment and other options. And we're blessed to have vehicles that are paid off. And ultimately, all we care about is having transportation to get from point A to point B.
Go ahead.
Because we need to use our resources that God has allowed us to have to go towards further building for our family now and for our family in the future.
Man, I think that is so critical, man. I think it's so key. So what we used to call it back in the country days, don't try to live beyond your means.
Right.
You know, not living beyond your means. I think that's so critical. And I know for me personally, I know, you know, when you was out there and we're both working in my own life, and you know, we're expensing, you know, paying 2 car notes. Well, that 2 car notes, man, equal a whole mortgage payment. You know what I'm saying? And so now you're paying like 2 or 3 mortgages. So you're paying the mortgage on your home, the mortgage for those 2 cars, and then thinking like, how are you going to save financially to even make any gains in life? And so it's like you're spinning your wheel on this hamster wheel. And I think it's the first thing that comes back to one is changing mindset when you're thinking financial literacy. You're thinking about financial, one is changing mindset. Thinking of it as a new mindset of how can I best navigate? How can you, the family unit, best navigate to change the trajectory of where you want to go and be financially? Number 2, we talked about even doing the small wins. I think that adds to another layer of, you know, of those short victories in our lives. And number 3, you talked about just and then you can take from those small wins to apply to the larger bills so that those things can be paid off and those things can be done. And so the more you keep paying off stuff and that's how you begin to eliminate debt and that debt in your life. And so the other thing about one of the things when it says on the one of the comments was credit cards should only be used to build credit by using it and paying it off in a short time. If you're using a credit card and don't have the means to pay it off quickly, you're a prisoner and debt is your warden. Just like as like the slave mentality, brother Shahid was just saying that, you know, if you can't pay that off immediately, and same thing with brother Sly saying, if you can't pay it off immediately, then you shouldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But once again, I think we've cultured in that mindset of I want it right here, right now, and I'll figure out a way of how to pay it off. You know what I'm saying? Not thinking that you're accruing the interest on that every month, and then depending on what your credit rate is, your credit scoring determines what that interest rate you're going to pay back on that card. So I think going through and really evaluating that and all those perspectives gives some lens to credibility of how to focus and how to move. You know what I'm saying? Financially.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it goes
also,
go ahead, brother. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and then it all falls back to budgeting your revenue and your expenses, because even if you do have, you got good credit, because credit basically is saying that my word is bond. You know what I'm saying? It's really letting you know how good is your word and about paying these debts off. So your revenue versus expenses. So if you get the mentality that, I'm only going to use this credit card, I'm going to pay it off in 30 days. Well, you got to make sure you're bringing in enough revenue to pay it off in 30 days and what you're trying to do. And look at how is credit used. We should study how credit is used. How does the United States government use credit? You know what I'm saying? To build an infrastructure, to build a business, to build this and to build that. Now, if that's what you're talking about, then we're talking about generational wealth now, because we're talking about acquisition of land. We're talking about acquisition of businesses. We're talking about annexing things in the hood or in communities where you can build up, or you get a large 25,000 acre lot and you're going to build some type of metropolis with several investors. I mean, these are the type of wheels and thinking that we have to have in the future to secure ourselves. Go ahead, Pastor Tim.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was heading that same direction, making sure that you're actually budgeting. And also for those of us who are entrepreneurs, we have to understand there's a difference between starting a business and investing. You got 2 totally different things. So when it comes to investing, that means you place your money in a place that you believe for whatever reason you will get a return. Right. When it comes to the business, that means you're starting something that you believe will generate some level of income for your house. Now, if you're thinking about starting a business, then it's okay for you to invest in your business. But when it comes to your business, make sure that you have created some walls between yourself and the business, which means that the company or the business that you have started should have some level or some placement for its own credit worthiness. Therefore, if it happens with that business, it falls apart, someone sues you, something goes wrong, someone, God forbid, gets hurt, then when it comes to that business, they can sue the business and not sue you. Or if the credit of that business goes left field, you walk away clean in your house and the business takes the hit, which it should. Right. And then ultimately your credit worthiness, the house, your stability of your house stays protected. So when you invest in business, whether it be your business or someone else's, that's fine. But make sure that the company that you start doesn't begin to be the placement in which you try to find your own credit worthiness.
Good. Let me ask you this. So say, I'm 19 years old. I go out and, I need to get a home. So I purchase a home. I got a good pay. I come out of school. I'm making 6-figure income. Yet I may have $50,000, $100,000 in debt because I went and got my master's and doctorate and all that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm making $150,000 a year, which is $100,000 just to keep it simple. So would you say like my first home would be an investment? Could it be an investment, or would it be something that I should just hold on to and pay off for 30 years?
Well, I don't want in front of doctor, but for me, I believe that everything that I touch ultimately is some level of investment. So as a 19-year-old gentleman, you should already be thinking that your home is an investment anyway. Right. So when I get my house, and let's just be honest, most of us, this is a whole different generation. This is a microwavable situation. Most people know you're not going to live in that house the whole 30 years. We're not mom and dad. They 35 years, and they rebuilt and added to it and tried to give it away and all that. No, most of us know in about 4 to 7 years, you're going to move anyway. Just be honest. So if you know that, hey, I'm not at that place where I'm ready to stick my heels in the sand and stay where I'm going to be, then every home you touch should be an investment. Right. If you're in a situation where you have to lease an apartment, make sure that you're leasing extremely economically safely, so that you're able to push funds to a place where you can get a house, and that house, and this is extremely important, never buy a home that will push you into a debt place that you cannot handle by yourself. Right. Never get a home where the debt of that home is dependent upon both incomes. If you have a wife, because what happens if, God forbid, one of you can't work? Make sure you also look at wherever you're placing your money, because in many places where you place your money, banks, is what I mean, a lot of them have opportunities for insurance that will cover you if you lose your job, or if, God forbid, something happens to you health-wise, or if you're going through, like we have a pandemic right now. Many pieces of insurance will cover your mortgage and will cover that payment if those things happen. Just make sure that we're going into it eyes wide open and we're making investments that make sense. Also, when you touch a home to buy a home, my wife and I owned 3 houses at one time when we were in Memphis. When you go in to buy a home, and we didn't know this, but now I know better, when you go in to buy a home, make sure that if you at all possibly can, that you attain a home where the appraisal is much higher than the cost, not one that matches the cost. You want to make sure that you're going into it in the green.
Equity, that's
that
right.
Way, if anything happens with that home, you're able to cash out on the home and do well on the cash out. I mean, there's just so many things. If your eyes are wide open in every move that you make, and you're not just going in, as Dr. Johnson said, you're not just going in to look flashy and to look good, but you're going in with the mentality that I am protecting myself, because a substance, a thing, does not sustain me, does not make me feel like I'm a man. I'm going into it looking at how can this be a a blessing and a help to my family in the future.
Right. I think one of the things is very critical and key to what we talked about as well, too, is that if you're that 19-year-old or that 20-year-old or that recent college grad and you're going in, you're making 6 figures, don't go in and purchase a home above your means. You know what I'm saying? Really change that mindset and perspective, how you think about wealth and how you think about. So don't go buy, you're making 100,000, you know what I'm saying? You're going to go buy a 200 and let's say $75,000 home. Because you think about the mortgage on that, and you think about that, you think about a car payment, your rent, and your mortgage, your car note, and all those kind of things. Make sure you move into it wisely and trying to see where am I trying to go financially, and then build the budget, build the plan first before you move into that. And I think we have to begin to reshape our mindset and thinking of how we approach it. Because when I was young and I came in, you know what I'm saying, you think about graduating from college, we got immensely loan debt. Once again, you got all this loan debt that you got to pay back, all these loans. And so there's so much that go into it that we got to begin to think smarter and more efficiently than just thinking, okay, now I got the money and the means. Because I think in so much of our in community, we want it because we never had it, right? And so that mentality and that mindset becomes our pervasiveness and thought, like we got to go get it now. And I think it's kind of like we said in the beginning, you want to show, okay, I'm doing well, I'm doing good for myself, and the tangible, these tangible things help you to see that and I guess for people to see that you're doing well. So I think you got to change that mindset and really approach that to how we've been saying at the beginning of financial wealth and literacy. Just to make sure you're making that mindset shift and change of how to win financially. Dr. Johnson, was you going to add to that or something? I don't know. Go ahead,
Pastor Tim.
But also, Doctor, we also need to make sure that we understand that investing in ourselves also reaches into how we negotiate even in our career path.
True.
For example, when you go to a job, it may be more, if you have a mountain of debt that bless you to be able to get your degree, why not look at the possibility of sacrificing 7 to 10% of what they're offering you money-wise or salary-wise and renegotiating, say, hey, keep the 10% and pay off my school debt. Stuff like that. So when you walk into a situation, now it becomes me not just looking for a career, but I'm trying to use you to invest in me so I can invest in me.
Right.
But if you go into it with that mentality, you'll be amazed how many companies would do it because they know when they pay off your school debt, it's a write-off for them. And if you're willing to sacrifice 5% of your salary, because you're not going to stay there anyway. You're going to be there for a couple of years. Use that as a building block to go where you're going next. So use it to your advantage to say, hey, keep 5% of my salary, pay off my school debt for me. They may not pay off all of it, but they may pay a large chunk of it off and go and negotiate that way. And that way you're investing in yourself, even in your following your career path.
Absolutely.
And Dr. Love, I think Kiki just asked an excellent question. I would almost recommend to her that she look into IRA contributions and making sure that she maxes those out as she can on a yearly basis.
Okay. So Kiki was her question is for everybody. She says, I hope all is going well with you all. I apologize if you've already talked about this because I came on a little late, but I need a list of investments. I'm doing so much better with my debt. My credit score is going up and my extra bills list is going down. Besides stocks and CDs, what are some other ways for me to save money?
Put all your money in a shoebox. You know how we do. You know what I'm saying? You on mute, Pastor Tim?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes,
sir. Yeah, now we can.
I say and buried in the backyard.
Right.
might put your money in the shoebox.
Right. I think Nipsey Hussle talked about that. He buried 100,000 and it molded on him. You know what I'm saying? So.
and that was just part of his diversification process.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I would say other investments, though, seriously, get into gold. I mean, besides that, metals, things that acquire interest and gain, over time. You can do, even if you like, for me, I'm all about land. So even if you can purchase small lots and resell them to realtor investors and those of that nature, I see that a lot now too, where people will go in and they'll buy a lot for $5 grand or $6 grand. It may be an acre depending on the time and year that they bought it, or half an acre, but they can resell it at, so if you pay $5, I'm seeing them resell about $50,000 to $100,000 depending on the area. So there's a lot of ways that you can invest and make quick money. It all depends on how long you want a short-term investment or a long-term investment. For me, I'm trying to get the cash, to be honest with you. As far as like for savings for school, because I'm self-employed, we own our own corporation. So I'm just trying to stack my bank account as big as I can and keep investing in small-term investments to grow it up. But that's just my strategy.
Okay.
Also, you mentioned precious metals, and that's amazing because I didn't really agree with my wife, but she began to put money into silver, and the reason she chose silver over gold for us was because gold is an amazing investment. Always that's going to always be a stable moment to put money into, because you'll be amazed in almost every single thing we use every day. Silver is involved somewhere. So that means that there's a need for silver beyond the flashy, the sign of wealth, because gold dictates the value of the dollar, or supposedly does. You all know how that goes. But it dictates what the dollar is worth. But silver is used in the actual hardship of living. When it comes to your phone, when it comes to most of your appliances. Silver is used in almost everything that we use today. So when the dollar no longer is worth anything, people are going to still need silver to function. So silver is a wonderful place to go. If you're going to look at stocks, because my son did the Forex for some time and did very well in it, and taught me quite a bit about when it comes to your stocks. Make sure, one thing I've learned that I think is very important: never invest in something that you don't understand.
Right.
What I mean by that
That's
is, you start blindly investing or just following someone else, and you have no understanding of what you are doing, then you'll have no idea when it's falling apart. So make sure that you are cautious, that you at least understand the concept of why you're putting your money there and why it's an intelligent place to put it. Also, have an understanding of what is a long-term and a short-term gain. Dr. Al, a moment ago, Dr. She was speaking a moment ago, he was speaking about he was looking for right now being liquid, getting cash immediately. So that means he's looking at the short-term gain, so he can stack his liquid moment. If you're going to do that, then make sure that you are very attentive to where your money is. If you're looking for a long-term gain, that means you're confident enough to see your money in a place where it seems to be losing, because you know, or you believe that down the line it'll grow again. And so don't get panicky when you see it suffering a loss, because you're willing to let your money sit until it gains again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, and also just to go on a piece that Pastor Tim talked about the stock market. Make sure every business that's involved in the stock market has an earnings call. You got to learn about that business. You got to learn if they're changing CEOs, what's going on internally. Even though if you do have an advisor on your 401k or how aggressive that you have that set up, still get involved in the business. Still get involved with what's going on, because you'll learn a lot about it. And as well, I remember when I started doing stock investment, I went to one of my frat brothers' name is Reginald Carter, where he was doing this when we was in college. You know what I'm saying? I go in his room, in his dorm room. He had the TVs up and everything. And I was like, man, what is this? What you got going on over here, brother? But I learned a lot. And so even to this day, if there's something that I'm not sure about, then I'll give him a call and he'll run it down to me real quick. So you got to also find, as we always say, find those people who can advise you well, that you can trust. That's not only just looking out for your money, but they're looking out for your best interests also. So, yes, sir.
Absolutely. Because I think that's very critical and key is in making sure you find someone who truly is an expert in that area to give you that financial advice. But, you know, they want to see you do well and thrive well. And so you want to make sure that you're talking with someone who, like Brother Shahid said, is that has your best interest at heart, who wants to see you thrive, who can help you make critical decisions that would impact your future. And so one of the things, as we kind of dive more into on this thing, financial literacy and just winning through finances, what are some quick wins to help us excel and win financially?
Okay.
Go
ahead. Go ahead. Okay. I mean, I was gonna go back to, you know, like some short term goals. That's what I was saying. One of the most you can always acquire land. Land is probably the best investment that you can make. I mean, to be honest with you. So find some small lots, invest in a lot, and resell it back to a builder. Mm-hmm. Those are some good small term investments. I think Brother Tony talked about IRAs, CDs, you know, 401ks if you're working on a job. But for me, land acquisition is where it's at. Ownership is always a good trade-off when you want to sell something at a small gain. Because like I said, in South Dallas, some of the lots are averaging between $3,000 to $5,000. You know what I'm saying? And now that you got gentrification going on and all of this land building, they want to build a Byron Nelson of golf course. So you can sell that back and make a huge win. You know, so these are some really good small term investments that I would think that, you know, people of intelligence could jump on.
Okay. Pastor Tim?
I think that first, before you look at too heavily investing, we go back to stage one of our conversation. That is the debt piece. And so I think some small victories is to knock out those small bills early on. And I can't stress how for 5 small bills if you put them all together, it's killing your whole house. Just those 5 small bills together. So knock out those small bills first, focus on that, then start getting to your long-term goals with the larger bills. And as far as investing is concerned, not necessarily telling you what to invest in, but telling you to diversify. I think Dr. Shahid was talking about that, but to divert, or Dr. Antonio, one or the other, but diversifying is very important. And this is scripture. Scripture says, cast your bread upon the water. You'll find it after many days. Give a portion. There's your investing. Give a portion to 7. No, do it in 8. That's what scripture says. Basically says, put it in 7 different places, put it in 8. And then he says, the reason I'm telling you to do that is because the world is evil. And you have no idea what's going to happen to where you put your money. Right. So diversify. And that way, if you have one place that falls apart, or even 2 or 3 places that fall apart, you still have 4 to 5 other places that yield a gain that cover your loss plus some. So make sure that all your eggs are not in one basket, that you diversify. Find you 7 to 8 different ways the income flow into your household, whether it be investment, whether it be income from a regular job, and get those 8 different streams of income flowing, and then you'll be able to kind of flow from there. And get a financial advisor. They help a lot.
Yeah, right. And I'll just add, you know, you want to make sure you educate yourself, take action, and really understand that it's never too late to get started.
Right.
That's cool. That's cool. I think one of the things, that's one of the things I would say too, is that it's never too late to start, as Dr. Johnson was saying. It's never too late to start, but also think about that whole planning process. And I think identifying kind of like long-term, short-term, like where you want to go, you know what I'm saying, and what you're trying to accomplish and achieve. And if you have a relationship with a spouse, significant other, making sure you guys are planning together on that and what that looks like. Because I think that all that builds to helping you sustain wealth and then also manage and grow that wealth together, because it's very important. And if you're looking to get into a relationship, you know what I'm saying, and partake in, grab a spouse or a husband or wife, you know what I'm saying, making sure that you kind of already nailed out some of the financial things that you need to in your own life before you come into that relationship as well too. We don't preach that enough. But I think it's so essential and necessary. Doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. And once you get into the marriage or the relationship, you can always work together to achieve it together. Knowing that all things are possible, but just changing mindset, budget, and planning. And like I said, I wish that we would have had these things growing up in our homes and taught in our homes and really help us build that. I think sometimes we're coming behind the curve, trying to run to the rat race and get it, but and not understanding from the beginning. And so it makes a truly huge difference. So Jeremiah says, how do you brothers manage your money? Is one question. First question. He said, money management is something I feel is the main thing I should learn while I'm young. Good question, Jeremiah. So question is, once again, good question, Jeremiah. How do you brothers manage your money? Number two is, money management is something I feel is the main thing I should learn while I'm young.
So he brings up a very good point that I was going to say we also don't preach enough on, and that is we as adults and parents can have all these great systems set up, but if we aren't teaching our kids how to also run those systems, whenever they get to the point where they're adults, they're not going to be prepared. Right. So going back to the question, I mean, it's really going to come down to, once again, obtaining that education. If it's not from your parents, it may be someone in your community, someone in your church who has a good, sound financial background and financial education to get you started on the path and get you the tools that you need to get started. And from there, you start mapping out your own plan based upon the goals that you have in mind for yourself.
Right. I would add on to what Brother Johnson was saying. There's a 50-30-20 plan that you can also use too. You take 50% of your net income, for your living expenses, and 30% is allocated to your discretionary expenses, and 20% is allocated to your future. If you start early with that, because the whole purpose of saving is to retire, or to pass on to the next generation so they can keep building. Because that's why it's important, as Brother Johnson was saying, that we have these conversations with our children, because it shouldn't stop with us. It should continue. It should be a building block until the family tree is totally financially independent. That's the goal, if that's your goal. I don't know what everyone's goal is, but ours is to be financially independent, not depending on anyone but self and God. That's it. So 50-30-20 is also an excellent strategy.
Absolutely.
I think that actually the Brother Shahid's plan is close to what we actually use in my home. But I will say this, when it comes to your bills, my goal is to get to a place where no more than 30% of my income goes to a bill. And I'm not there yet. I'm at about 53% probably now, as far as my household income going to just straight bills. But my goal is to get down to 30%. So that's just a personal goal of mine, because I don't like giving people my money for no reason. I don't. If I want to buy, I want to buy it, and it's mine. That's what I like to do. So, but yeah, so so I try to make sure that my money goes in my pocket, and I have more room for discretionary and put it where I want it to be. And I make sure that at least 10% of what comes into my household, at minimum, normally we hit around 17 to 18%, but at least 10% of what comes into my household is given to the house of the Lord. And why do I do that? We do that because in the house of the Lord, now I can't speak for y'all house and somebody else's house, but the place where we give our 10% plus percent, they're helping the poor. They are helping those who are in need. Of course, they provide a safe and a comfortable place to worship. So I try to make sure that I give back, and reaping and sowing is very, very real. Everybody doesn't believe in it. I think the world calls it karma, but reaping and sowing is very real. So when you sow, you'll reap some kind of harvest in whatever you sow, whether that sowing is good or bad. You're going to reap it back some kind of way. So I try to push 10% somewhere else as well. So, and also if you are, I know he's single, but for those who are married, make sure you have an account just for your bills, and then you have separate accounts for everything else. That's extremely important. That way you can keep a much closer watch, because it's dangerous to play where you lay. And so if you're playing in that same account, it's very difficult to make sure that you keep somewhere to lay. So make sure that you have a different account for where you play and where you lay, and you can keep it. My wife and I have one account, and we pay all of our bills in that one account. The expectation in the house is that we put the correct amount of money in that account every week on a regular basis, which sends that account into overflow. So there's never a time when we're concerned about whether or not a bill gets paid. And then we both have personal accounts for excess. And then we have a fourth account for just savings. And that helps us keep everything in line and nothing gets convoluted. Then we're able to invest properly.
Right. See, Pastor Tim's talking about money management. Is all where we started at. How are you managing your money?
I like that when he said, but I think that's really cool, man. I think even when that money management, like, you have the 4 different accounts set up, so it gets convoluted, and and in the household, everybody knows this is for this account, is for this purpose. This account is for that purpose. This account for that purpose. And so, I mean, that really makes, that's really managing to another level as well.
I want to say something too about charity, because Pastor talked about charity. Charity is very important, and he's talking about how you reap what you sow. I mean, you don't know the benefit of it until you do it. Honestly, we hear people talk about it, but I didn't. For instance, I just don't want to talk about myself. I didn't know the benefit of giving and how I would benefit from that until I started giving, whether it's to a church, whether it's to an organization, whether it's to somebody in need. But God always, if you believe that there's a higher being controlling things, he always sends you the people that you need right on time if you have a good heart, and that's part of it. Those who are able are obligated on this planet to take care of the poor. And I'll just leave it right there.
Right. And I think it's so critical that, and I think it's a biblical principle that's applied throughout in your life will always yield tangible results in your life. Right. When you give, it's the thing of reaping and sowing. It shall be given back to you. You know what I'm saying? And so you'll begin to grow in so much more in your money management, financial management, and all of those great things. And so you'll begin to continue to thrive and grow and learn. And so if you have a question regarding any questions about as relates to financial literacy, how to build your budget, one of the things is what are some quick things or quick wins as relates to developing or managing your budget? Whether creating that budget, and how does that look like for if you're going to a business as well too? Brother Shahid, so budgeting, kind of creating a budget.
It all depends. I mean, it's how Pastor Tim talked about it. If you can create different funds, he just has different fund accounts for different allocations of what they want to do. That's the easiest way. So you don't have to be looking at one account and be like, okay, this is that. You can get confused doing all of that. You know what I'm saying? So for the money management piece, I think Pastor Tim hit it right on point. Is you have to have a different account for certain things that you're trying to get accomplished and stick to it. Write a plan on your budget. If you're married, y'all need to come together and put together some type of financial plan. How many accounts do you need? Me personally, we have maybe about 7 to 10 accounts, but at the same time, each one is for its own, it has its own specific purpose, and stick to that. I seen one sister said something about, management going into a marriage is a deal breaker. Yes, money management is essential piece to marriage. It definitely is. But this is something that you have to talk about in the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to know what you get yourself into, so now it's like, am I coming? I know we had this talk on another show, but it's just, yeah. But when you're looking at someone to be your significant other, you got to have these hard questions. You know what I'm saying? They have to be able to prove to you that they are good with money, or are they just learning how to deal with money? It all depends on what you want to deal with. But don't get into a marriage and then find out that, all they do is spend, and you just now finding that out. No, that was your decision from the beginning. You have to ask these hard questions if you plan on being with somebody forever, because that's the whole point. This is not a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. Yes. This is a lifelong commitment that you are standing in front of your creator and saying that I'm committed to this. So now your word has to be bond.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, and that's very critical. Once again, if you have any questions, any comments that you would like for the brothers to address, please let us know. We'll definitely take care and address any of your questions and of your comments, and making sure that, we provide you with the information and tools needed to help you be more financially stable. So how do we, so what would you say to that young man who's looking to, who's looking forward to getting engaged soon, looking forward to, marriage? How could we speak to that young man, to that brother today to say, hey, these are the things you need to look at. I wish I would have done these things when I was pursuing a wife in relationship and things of that magnitude.
Get your
Don't overspend. Yes.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Tony.
Don't overspend on the wedding.
Bruh, say it again.
Don't overspend on the wedding.
Right. I mean, because when you look at that, a lot of us go into our relationships. It's not a two-parent household. Saying if they're both single parents coming in, nobody is financing that wedding but you. I'm just talking to those who come from that type of environment. Some of us may marry into different families and they merge and they both sides of it have mothers and fathers, but a large percentage of us don't have that. So what he's saying is totally true. Don't overspend on the wedding, man. You'll be paying that off, and that'll be another debt, especially if you went to school and you had to take financial aid and loans to pay off for your school. So get your debt under control, brother, before you try to bring somebody else in. And make sure that they have a clear understanding of your debt ratio. What are you trying to do with your credit? Talk about your future. Talk about how many accounts do we have to set up? Talk about budgeting. Talk about how you spend money. What are your wants and your needs? I mean, it has to be a cohesive agreement between both of you so you can have a clear understanding. No sneaky stuff. No pulling stuff out the back of the hat, because that'll end the marriage real quick. So you have to be honest with yourself and with your mate.
Absolutely. Pastor Tim?
Don't let big numbers make you abandon discipline. Mm-hmm. A lot of times what happens is when we start saving and we start accumulating some excess in these accounts, we begin to think, oh, there's a big number there, so I can stop being disciplined in my spending. I can stop being disciplined in how I handle and how I truly manage my funds. And because I have a lot of excess, and people don't understand, if you've never had $5,000 in the bank, you never had $10,000 in the bank, that looks like a big number to you.
Go ahead.
And so I have a lot of money in the bank, so I can go out and act a fool. And like Tonio said, I can overspend now. And no, don't abandon the discipline because the number looks big. Also, excess in one area does not mean it should be able to cover a lack in another area. What I mean by that is, if you have an account set aside for bills, and of course you should always put more money in your bill account than is necessary. You should always go at least 10% more every time you're putting into your bill account. So that means you should accumulate some excess. That helps you out when you get to a big water bill or a big electrical bill or whatever it is. In emergencies, you always have excess building in that fund. That excess stays there. Then you have your play money or your personal accounts that you have set up, and then of course you have your savings account. If you get to a place where you want to play and you have some lack in being able to do what you want to do in your play, that does not mean that you go to your excess in your bill account.
Mhm.
No, I don't have enough in my play account. We got to wait
Right.
until we have enough in the play account. Because just because I have more here doesn't mean I grab from over here. Don't mix those funds. Everything has a purpose. Let those things that have a purpose be used for that purpose, and you'll be a lot better off.
One of the things I want to hit to, Mr. Parker, we're coming to your question just as soon as we hit this one thing. One of the things we were talking about prior to the show starting was helping parents to know how they can save for college. One of the things that we were looking into, and one of the things that we're doing is looking into the 529 college savings plan. And I'm going to let Dr. Johnson and Brother Shaheed talk on the 529 savings plan. Help.
I'll go ahead and let Brother Shaheed take that one.
That's you. You're involved in it.
Well, of course, you know, he has the breakdown of it, but we are currently utilizing that particular plan for our children in terms of college savings. And it's a way that you can get particular benefits on what you're contributing to that on a yearly basis and have it set up to where you're just consistently making sure that you have that steady path of flow, as Pastor Tim mentioned, of money going towards college.
Gotcha.
And I'll just add exactly what the 529 plan is. Of course, it's a tax code. All right, when you say 529. Now 525, it says 529 plan is a tax advantage investment vehicle in the United States designed to encourage saving for the future higher education expenses of a designated beneficiary. It started in 2017. K through 12 public, private, and religious school tuitions are included as qualified expenses for 529 plans, along with post-secondary education costs after the passage of the Tax Cut and Job Act. So when Dr. Johnson was talking about that, I never heard of it. This is the first time I even heard of it, to tell you the truth. So, I think it's all beneficial because you don't just have to use it for college. You can use it for private school tuition and everything else. So, and I think it's pre-tax. So this is for those who are workers. You know, if you self-employed, you ain't getting no taxes. You know, ain't taking no taxes out of your money till the end unless you paying employee taxes.
All right. So cool. Just want to make. Go ahead, Pastor Tim.
I was about to say also. I'm not a great educational stream person, but I'm great at researching, and I've helped a lot of young people get their funding for school. And what we did, there's a place called scholarships.com. And don't think, well, my GPA is not high enough. We make too much money. None of that matters. Do you know that there are scholarships for left-handed people? There are scholarships for ambidextrous people. There are scholarships for people who live on a farm.
Yeah.
By the way, the definition of a farm is at least, I think, 2 to 3 animals on your property at one time. You need some kind of productivity.
Right.
So there are scholarships for literally everything you could imagine. So, and the last lady I spoke to, she got not only all of her funding for school, but she had excess to where she had money in the bank when she went to school. So I'm telling you, the money is there. You got to research it and take the time to not be lazy and go get loans. Go and find the government has so much money they have put to the side. And by the way, if that money is not used when it comes from the government, if it's not used, guess what happens to that money?
Goes back.
Depending on where it's located, it goes pushed to the side. It sits for almost 2 years. After that money sits for almost 2 years, a senator somewhere has the opportunity to use it at his discretion. So guess what they don't want you to do? They don't want you to know the scholarship exists. Because that money sits for the time it's allotted and available to you. Then it sits for another 2 years untouched. And then they can put that money where they want to put it. So go get that money. It's for you.
Absolutely. 100% is definitely for you. So Mr. Parker says the average child costs $25,000 to $30,000 to have. What are some methods in controlling healthcare expenses during marriage?
We discussed this in another podcast. Start eating and living well. Cut down on these. That's the best way. Make sure that you eat right, exercise, and keep you and your be an example for your child by exercising with them. And I think that eliminate that. That's just good health and nutrition. But when you talk about 25 to 30,000 to have, man, I have to add that up. I got 6 of them over here. So you trying to tell me what's that? 12 and 30? That's what 135,000. I ain't even seen it like that, Mr. Parker.
Right. I even equated to that, you know what I'm saying? But I think one of the things too is like if you can get some type of health savings card as well too,
absolutely.
And the health savings card will allow you to use those funds for medical expenses. Not necessarily you have to go through you can go to the Affordable Care Act to get those health saving cards. You don't for insurance purposes, but I would say please make sure you get those health savings card because you can use that card as for medical expenses to help you with the financial things for your children and for the entire family unit as well.
And you're right. I asked you to a situation where a piece of medicine for my baby girl, my oldest girl, would have cost $300. With that card, it costs $10.
Right.
It works. It helps.
Yeah, there are a lot of methods out there. We just have to seek them out.
Right. Dr. Johnson, you got anything to add to that? He said about what are some methods in controlling healthcare expenses during marriage?
No, I follow up and concur with Brother Shahid as well as Pastor Tim.
All right, cool.
I think Miss Johnson's at a soccer game.
Also about the play.
No. I was telling like Dr. Johnson's at his son's baseball games. It's baseball, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so he's been the father while being on the show at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
I'm talking about.
That's what we do as a brother. We multitask. You know what I'm saying? We get it all in at one time.
But hey, in Texas, you can call 211, right? I don't know what it is in other states. I can't remember what it is in Tennessee. But I know in Texas, you can dial 211 when you need to find out what's available and what's out there to help you attain what you need healthcare wise, and in fact, in any emergency wise whatsoever. If you don't have what you need, dial 211. They'll tell you what's available and they'll direct you to where you need to go. As a man, Mr. Parker, put your pride away. Not saying that you have pride, but we all need to put our pride away, put our ego away, and use what's available out there for you. Because you need to understand that the things that you get, you paid for them. And if you don't use them, then you don't get the advantage of them. Not saying you're going out looking for a handout, but most of these items you paid for with your tax money. So utilize them. So call 211 and they'll tell you what's out there.
Right. Also, Mr. Parker, thank you for putting what you're putting in the chat and what our comments are, man. You own it. So we appreciate you, brother, for taking care of us like that, man. Thank you so much for that, brother. Thank you so much. Any other questions? So as we kind of wrap up this show, everybody, I think that's all the questions that we have for today that I seen to come through on the thread. As we wrap up today, kind of what are your final thoughts on everything on today's show?
I would say, get you an investment group, a group of individuals who are like-minded, who's thinking about financial literacy, because as Pastor Tim said earlier, research is one of the best things that you can do. And if you have a group of people researching, then y'all can bounce ideas off of each other and see what worked, what hadn't worked, what you done researched, what you done thought. You don't think that you have to do this all by yourself. I mean, I learned a lot on this show with our 3 other panelists just even today about how they handle their finances and research and family future. But if I never would have been on the show, how would I know? Because I'm just dealing with myself. How would I know what even to go look up on Google or what to go look up on research? So get you a group of individuals, 4 to 6, and start out there. That'll help anyone a lot.
I agree. Just, make sure you seek wise counsel and keep an open mind.
Right.
And I would say discipline, leverage, and giving. Number one, you must be disciplined to follow the plan that you have laid out to get out of where you are and to get where you're going. Leverage, meaning that I would rather use someone else's money rather than my own, and then use my own when it's needed only. So make sure you're utilizing credit wisely and leveraging it and not making it a replacement for what you don't already have. And then finally, giving. Make sure that while you're trying to get, that you have a heart to give because you reap what you sow.
That's right.
Absolutely. And as we conclude this show on financial literacy and building wealth, how to develop a budget and getting out of debt, I hope we shared some enough tools and tips and practices that will help you get started, initiate movement in your life. Know that it's never too late to begin again. It's never too late to say there's no hope, because you definitely can do it. And we appreciate you for tuning in today. Make sure that you live a financial free life, a financial healthy lifestyle, and just make sure that you seek wise counsel, you educate yourself, you research, because all these things are in place as you move to the next level and phase and purpose for you and your entire family. So with that being said, we are the Brothers Podcast, and we say thank you for tuning in today. You can always check out our podcast on the website, on our site. You can always see us. If you have any questions or comments for us, please make sure you leave those for us. We'll address those at all times. We'll be back on the 17th. And on the 17th, it's about to get gritty once again as we talk about education, a subject that's to all of our heart as we talk about the prisoner pipeline in K-12. We talk about higher ed. We talk about how to even engage more in education. And so from an educational standpoint and perspective, it's going to be off the chain on the 17th. And you do not want to miss this show. And so we want to give a shout out to Mario X. He's out today, who's sick. He's another brother of the podcast. And so if you lift him up in prayer as he is recovering from his cold that he's had, but he'll be back on the 17th. With that being said, to all of you, we thank you guys. We love you. God bless you. One love. Peace from the brothers.
Peace.